Hello, friends.
Welcome to episode 4 of our podcast, Kidsplorers. We're so excited that you're joining us on our journey to explore and discover new things. You might remember that in our last episode, we explored an incredible extinct animal that our entire family was curious about, the Tasmanian tiger. We also got to travel to Australia with Professor Smartypants, where we met Professor's student, kid scientist Maxim. Maxim suggested that for episode 4, we should dive in and explore a very interesting topic, tsunamis. Daniel and Isabella, do you guys know what tsunamis are?
I've heard of tsunamis, but I don't know what causes them.
I don't really know what they are.
I think that since kid scientist Maxim suggested this topic, we should pay a visit to Professor Smartypants to learn all about tsunamis.
That's a great idea.
I agree. I'd also love to learn more about tsunamis. Let's visit Professor at his laboratory.
Great, to the car.
We're here.
And so is Professor Smartypants.
Hello, Professor.
Hi, friends. It's so nice to see you. I actually think I know why you guys are here visiting me today. You came to learn about tsunamis.
That's right.
And we are all coming to you with lots of questions, like what are the tsunamis, what causes them, and where do they usually happen?
Those are all great questions. I love to see you guys get curious about different topics, and today's topic is another important one. Come and join me inside so we can explore all these questions and more.
Great, let's go.
Welcome back to my laboratory.
Professor, why is it so wet here?
Well, kid scientist Maxim and I have been running lots of different experiments in order to learn about tsunamis. Since tsunamis happen mainly in the ocean and mostly actually in the Pacific Ocean, our experiments involved a lot of water. And I mean a lot of water.
That's awesome. We love to experiment with water too.
Yes, we do. But tsunamis are quite different from the type of water experiments we do. Professor, I have been wondering, what does the word tsunami actually mean?
Tsunami is a word that comes from the Japanese language. Tsu means harbor and nami means wave. Therefore, it means wave in a harbor. In reality, though, tsunamis do not happen in harbors only. They can happen in many different areas. Tsunamis are also sometimes called tidal waves or seismic waves.
Professor, are tsunamis just very big waves?
They are, but there is more to it. Tsunamis are very large ocean waves, which can be caused by a few things: an underwater earthquake, an underwater volcanic explosion, or a landslide. The first two are the most common causes.
Wait a minute. There are volcanoes in the ocean? You mean to tell us that there are volcanoes that can erupt in water? How is that possible?
Of course there are. In fact, about 80% of all volcanic eruptions actually happen under the water surface. In a volcano and under the surface of the earth, there is magma, which is really melted rock. It is extremely hot and red. When a volcano erupts, magma travels up the center tube that you imagine when you think about a volcanic mountain, and through the opening at the top. That opening is called the crater. Once a volcano erupts, the magma turns into lava, and when the lava cools down, it hardens, creating a layer of rock.
I think I get it now. Does that mean that really most volcanoes are underwater, but each time they erupt, they grow taller because the lava adds a new layer of rock on top when it cools down?
Is this why volcanoes look like mountains?
That's exactly right.
Hey guys, I have a joke for you. Do you know why you can't trust a volcano?
Why is that?
Because they erupt to no good. Get it? Erupt to no good.
Haha, very funny.
Good one. Well, back to our topic. As I mentioned before, volcanic eruptions are one cause for tsunamis. Another cause can be an earthquake.
How can an earthquake do that?
I can answer this. The Earth is made of a few different layers. The top one is called the crust, and it is really just the surface of the Earth. The crust is made up of a few different pieces that come together, almost like a puzzle. Those pieces are always moving slowly except for when there is an earthquake.
Those pieces are called tectonic plates, and we don't feel them when they move slowly. We only feel them when they move fast because the quick rubbing of the plates together is what causes an earthquake to happen.
So earthquakes could happen in the ocean?
Earthquakes can happen anywhere where the tectonic plates rub against each other too quickly. And just like a volcanic eruption can change the surface of the earth by adding layers of rock on top of the volcano, an earthquake can also change the surface of the earth. Very strong shakes on the ground can cause roads to crack, bridges to break, buildings to be damaged, and more. But that usually happens only if the earthquake is very strong, which is not very common.
I knew that Dane would always come up with a joke, but this time I came up with one too.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, bring it on.
Earthquake was very sad that no one laughed at her joke. Only the ground cracked up.
Oh, wait a minute. That was actually pretty good. So, Professor, what do earthquakes and volcanoes actually have to do with tsunamis?
Well, when an earthquake or volcano happens, it can feel like a giant explosion. Can you guess what happens to the ocean water when a volcano or an earthquake take place in the water?
It could cause a big splash to happen?
Wait. I think I see where you're going with this, Professor. Earthquakes and volcanoes can cause giant movements in the ocean, which can suddenly move water in all directions, right?
That's right. If one of those things happens, water gets pushed out of the way very suddenly and quickly, and it flows to a different place. This is called displacement. This sudden rush of displaced water is what creates a wave, which becomes bigger and stronger as it continues to move away from the epicenter of the earthquake or the volcano.
What does epicenter mean?
An epicenter is the exact point on the surface of the earth where an earthquake or a volcano happens.
Is it true that before a tsunami hits land, water from shallow parts of the ocean actually moves back to the ocean and beaches become dry for quite some distance?
That is correct. When the volcano erupts or an earthquake happens, the big movement first pushes water out very suddenly, but then the water rushes back to the epicenter. This is why shallow ocean areas often become dry before the giant wave approach. The first wave that is pushed to land, which is also the first wave of a tsunami, is usually not the strongest, but following waves usually get stronger.
It sounds like the water comes in stages, and the waves get stronger before the tsunami ends. But tsunamis can be so different. They can be very strong or quite weak. They can last for a short period of time, or it can take days for the water to return to the ocean.
That's right. So I want to explain to you guys why it's so wet in the laboratory today. One of the experiments that kid scientist Maxim and I did was we filled a big container with water and then we threw a heavy ball into it. The place where the ball fell was the epicenter. The heavy fall of the ball caused the water to move or be displaced to other places in the container, and obviously the water even went above the container, spilling on the floor.
I think I finally understand. The water travels very fast during a tsunami.
Professor, I read that during a tsunami, water can travel at speeds of up to 500 miles per hour.
That's true. It travels almost as fast as an airplane. It can also reach height of 30 meters, which is like a tall house.
That's really high, which is why it's so important to have the tools to tell when an earthquake, a volcano, or a tsunami will happen. Scientists have actually developed tools like this and can tell when a tsunami is approaching. The tools help them detect earthquakes or water level changes in the ocean. But I wonder how people without these tools can tell that a tsunami is approaching.
I think that places where tsunamis could happen have an alarm system. I heard that San Francisco has alarms that make very loud sounds throughout the whole city to warn people that a tsunami is approaching.
I love that you mentioned this. You're right. Alarms are very important. Also, nowadays, it's easier and quicker to get these warnings to people through the news or internet.
Also, like I mentioned, if a person noticed that the beach they are at is suddenly dry for a long distance and the water moved back to the ocean, there is a possibility that a tsunami is approaching.
So where could people go if there's a tsunami coming?
First of all, I think that it's important to remember that tsunamis are rare because a lot of different and unusual things need to happen at the same time to create a tsunami. However, if there is a tsunami warning in your area or you notice the water moving back to the ocean, the best thing to do is move to higher areas like hills or mountains or anywhere that is above the wave that will come.
That makes sense.
Professor, I heard that when the tsunami ends and the water begins to return to the ocean, the waves often carry with them trees, cars, and other large items.
That's true. The water rushing back to the ocean can be quite strong. Different items from land can travel with the water when they return to the ocean.
I think even big items like cars and trees can be carried to the ocean with the waves.
Wow, water is incredible.
Yes, it is. Professor, this has been such an amazing lesson for us. Thank you so much for all this information. We came to learn about tsunamis, but we learned about so much more.
Professor, is there any way for our listeners to try out an experiment at home that would show them how a tsunami works?
I almost forgot. Thanks for reminding me. Maxim left you guys a little message. Take a listen.
Hi friends, I hope you had a fun time learning about tsunamis. This is actually one of my favorite topics to learn about. I have a suggestion on how you and your listeners can learn more about tsunamis at home. Next time it rains and you see a puddle, and only if your parents allow you, put on some rain boots and a rain jacket and go outside to jump in the puddles. Pay attention to what happens to the water in the puddle when you jump. You will see that when you jump, the sudden force from your weight will make the water move out of the way, creating waves that will travel outside of the puddle. Once you stop jumping, the water relaxes and slowly returns to where it used to be. This is very similar to what happens in a tsunami that is caused by a volcano or an earthquake. I love that idea.
Me too. I would love to try this experiment.
If you or your listeners try out this experiment, it will be amazing to see pictures or videos of how the experiment went.
I think it's actually raining right now. Let's put on our rain boots and go out.
Oh, wait a minute. We need to decide what we're gonna learn about next week.
I forgot all about that, but I've actually thought about this since last week. I love Marvel and all the superhero movies, and the recent movies have something in common. They feature a very important person who created some of these superheroes, Stan Lee. I would love to learn about him and how he became a superhero inventor.
I would also love to learn about him and how he invented the superheroes.
I agree. This is an amazing idea. Friends, join us again next Sunday as we learn about Stan Lee. We hope you liked today's episode. Please help us grow our podcast by sharing it with all your friends who you think would like to join us on our explorations. We would also love it if you would share pictures or videos of you trying out Kid Scientist Maxim's experiment suggestion. It would be so nice to see you all learning about tsunamis in a fun way. Please share with us any feedback and suggestions for what you'd like us to explore in future episodes. In the meantime, if you liked our episode today, we will be so excited if you could give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform you listen to us on. It will mean so much to us. And this is it, the end of our 4th episode.
Thank you all.
Until next week, goodbye.
To the puddles.